What is the darkest thing you've said as an insult? This isn't as dark as others and it was said to me, not me saying it. I was coughing my ass off in class after taking a drink of water and this kid says, would you die quicker and quieter? Not me, but overheard at school back in the day. One of my classmates, Georgia, was a twin whose sister was called Sophie, and Sophie had an accident that brain damaged her. I don't know how bad it was, but she never came back to school. Georgia got into some drama a year or two later. I was way too socially awkward to know any details of, but one of the other girls literally said, we all wish it had been you, to her face. I haven't said it, but an ex-sister-in-law did, which resulted in her karma. I was pregnant the same time she was. Due to her smoking, drinking, and drug use, she had her baby before I did. The baby was 3 months premature. She decided to give her baby up to whoever can take care of her. Family found out about it and confronted her about it. Then the ex-sister-in-law pointed at me saying, I hope you lose your fucking baby, you fucking low trash skank. I didn't do anything wrong to her to deserve that, but I did cut her out of my life. She got divorced, as she was cheating. She also abandoned her kids for drugs. She had 2 more kids, but they were both lost in a miscarriage. Now she is a homeless felon sitting in jail. Arguing with a girl back in high school, and she said she wouldn't be surprised if someone took a chainsaw to my face. I retorted that she looked like someone had taken a chainsaw to her face. Found out some time later she had a crush on me, and that was partly her way of flirty banter. I lie awake at night sometimes to this day thinking about how I must have affected her self-confidence. Not mine, but a buddy of mine once told a coworker that his parents were disappointed they didn't get a folded flag for Christmas while he was on deployment. My mother is a narcissist. Nothing anyone says seems able to reach her. Except one thing, which I threw at her face a few years back. She was married once, and her husband committed suicide within months of their marriage. Mom found his corpse hanging in the living room. The husband was an alcoholic who was relying on his 2 daughters from a previous marriage for emotional support. My mother played nice and sweet until the night after their wedding, which is when she let out her inner narcissist and decided that her husband would not be allowed to see his daughters anymore, ever. They made my mother feel jealous, you see. She also put a blanket ban on all alcohol, and knowing Mom, she was extremely unpleasant and oppressive in how she rolled out that change, which she claims was for her husband's own good. He hanged himself 3 months later. So yeah, I told my mom she murdered the only man she ever loved. Only time in my life I saw my mom's facade crumble. When someone has no friends in the UK, you call them Billy No Mates. It was really popular back in the 90s when I was in primary school. A guy I went to school with used to bully people all the time, and I lash out at everyone because his dad had ran off and left him. One day I got tired of everyone having to be his punching bag because he had been dealt a shit hand, so I called him Billy No Dads. It destroyed him, and what's more is the name stuck and he got called it for the rest of primary school. Don't punish innocent people for your problems, you massive Billy No Dads. After several prank calls and a voicemail where someone spent a full minute calling me the N-word repeatedly, I did a phone lookup and found out it was a girl I used to hook up with. So the next time she called I answered with, why don't you make like your brother and kill yourself? I'm not proud of it, but she stopped harassing me after that. Old guy, late 70s maybe, was flipping at me and swearing because he couldn't wait 15 seconds for me to reverse out of a mall parking spot. I opened the window and told him to calm down, old timer, you'll be dead soon. Not that dark, but the most satisfying. I got called by one of the standard "we heard you were in an accident" calls. At the time I was getting about 1 or 2 of these a day. Decided to play along for a while. I eventually got transferred to the manager and said in my nicest voice just quickly before we continue, I was wondering, does your mother know what you do for a living? Silence followed by a fuck you, and he hung up. Made my day. The father of my then GE was a serial cheater and she suffered a lot from it, as did her mother. Months after we found out about this, it was my turn to learn that my then girlfriend was cheating on me with his supposed best friend. Also, she asked me for some money to buy said friend tickets to a music festival, to which I obliged. When I found out about the cheating and was later accused of it being my fault for being distracted, I was writing my thesis, I told her something like you are the same piece of shit as your father. Felt bad after, never saw her again. This isn't something she said, but someone said this to me and it was dark. I'm starting to see why your dad used to hit you after an argument. So this is more dark in hindsight, but when I was in high school, there was a girl who constantly bullied other girls. She had a god-awful personality and she was orange from her regular tanning salon visits with bleached hair to match. A real piece of work. One day, I was sitting next to her in biology. She was trying to gossip with me about another girl until I had had enough. I turned to her and told her, you know what? Think you are one of the most awful people I have ever met, and if you got cancer tomorrow, no one would care. What does hindsight have to do with it, you ask? Guess who was diagnosed with skin cancer the next year? While on vacation with my family when I was 17, Mom, her boyfriend who became my stepfather, brother, my mom lost her credit card. While they were panicking, I mentioned something logical about where it could be, which pissed off her boyfriend for some reason, so he said, I liked it better when you weren't talking. I retorted, and I liked it better when you didn't live with us. I wasn't the burner, I was the burned. I have an history of suicidal tendencies. I was jokingly said to a friend, just end it man, which he replied, says the one who tried it first. I was angry, but now I am proud, we are very much still friends. My father's parents are misanthropic assholes. When he died they were heartless about it and were trying their hardest to disrespect his memory to me. Not even an hour after I had found his deceased body. Told me verbatim that he was dead to them and that they had practically disowned him. However, they were trying to cash in on the pity points from others by saying their last remaining son had passed, woe is me type shit. One day a few weeks after his passing, my grandmother tried to start shit with me and I just whipped around and straight out told her, the only person who ever could, and did, I of you unconditionally and wholly as a person died, and no one else gives a shit about you because you're an asshole about everything. Nothing really came of it, but they stopped disrespecting my father to my face at least. An ex used to constantly mock how close I was with my sister. Probably from jealousy, as she had been really close with her own brother until he completely cold-shouldered since getting a girlfriend. One day LD had enough, so when she laughed when I said I was going to a film with my sister, we were going to meet the rest of the fam but unimportant, I looked her in the eye and said, just cause your brother would never want to watch a film with you, doesn't mean I don't want to watch a film with my sister. She spent the next hour or so skipping class to cry in the toilet. My ex was taking me out for my 24th birthday a few weeks after giving birth to our son. He had a tendency to blame stupid random events on me. The weather was bad? It was my fault for being out in it. Traffic was shit? It was my fault we were sitting in it. He controlled the money I made, but if the finances were bad it was because I wasn't working hard enough or fast enough. Meanwhile, he didn't hold a job about a good 80% of the 3 years we were together. So we're in traffic because it's Austin, Texas, and that's what happens there. We're on 135 and he's screaming at me because the traffic is bad. He screams at me that he wants a divorce. I tell him, finally, fine. It'll be the best damn birthday present I've received from you in a long time. He shut up after that and was quiet the rest of the drive to my birthday festivities, which I had to pay for Mijalt. I did get the divorce, but several months later, and it really was the best gift I've had in a while, birthday or not. In a fight with someone I'm no longer friends with, the main issue was that she kept talking shit about me behind my back. At one point she said, well, it's just who I am, and I told her if she doesn't change the way she treats people then she's just going to keep being abandoned like with her friend group before us and like was happening with us. Her response was, well, it's who I am and I'm not going to change and you just have to deal with that. And this was already an hour into the fight and T had had enough, so just shouted, if you're not going to change the way you treat people, why the fuck would anybody want to keep you around? I was arguing with my mom when I was a teen. She says, I guess I blew it then raising you. I countered with, if you'd done that in the first place we both wouldn't be having these problems. 10 years or so after our divorce, my ex asked why I had never gotten in another relationship or even dated. I said, after what you did to me, why would I take that risk again? She flinched like I had physically attacked her. For those wondering, it was a seriously toxic relationship, especially when it came out towards the end that her whole personality was a fraud she'd been perpetrating on both of us for 4 years. Oh, and the affairs. I was on the bus. I'm middle school, an average-looking chunky girl was ripping on me. I said something like, if you had real tits you wouldn't have to stuff your bra with your belly rolls. I dumped a girl because she tended to engage in self-destructive behavior, financial self-sabotage and multiple suicide attempts. She begged me to take her back and tried to convince me to engage in physical activities as a method of coercion. I didn't take the bait, and when she asked me why are you doing this, the only response I could come up with was the truth, I can't save you every time. It's already bad enough that I can't help, but I am sure as hell not letting you take my future down with yours. You'll never convince me that your parents aren't brother and sister. Went right over their head. Never did convince me either. You are the human equivalent to a participation reward. And before any of you ask, yes, I saw that piano guy vid, yes, I actually used to insult Bed Wars rushers. Had an ex that went into a downward spiral with drugs, got mad that I dumped him, started harassing me. He showed up at my house to heckle me. To make it worse, he was actually mostly sober. I took his moment of sobriety to say what I meant the most. I told him that if he kept doing what he was doing his brains was gonna be smeared on a bridge just like his father's. For context, his father was an alcoholic and crashed into a bridge and died when my ex was 7. Hate to say that to this day I do not regret what I said, even though he actually cleaned up his act. A serial rapist looks at you and reminds himself that he has standards. My victim? A relentless bully that got off on seeing me cry. I do not like rape jokes, but I had no choice but to use this fire. During a fight, I told an abusive ex that everything he touched turned to shit, including me. I went from an confident young person to a very anxious and uncertain wreck within a few years. A young love and naivete. Uncle scolding me for something that was none of his business. Me, thank God that first wife of yours made you get a vasectomy, because if this is how you'd act as a parent, she did the world a hell of a favor. After an emotional breakdown after being cheated on and her wanting meet up an hour after it happened, I called my ex a cum dumpster. Wasn't something I said, more did. It tripped over a curb when crossing the street and a man in a wheelchair laughed at me, so I got up and did a little jig with my feet while maintaining direct eye contact. The way his laugh stopped made it clear he understood my point without saying a word. You've got enough step siblings to make a flight of stairs. Just how many parents left you? I said this to my friend when he was being unnecessarily annoying, and for context, his dad left him when he was young and now he has a stepdad and more step siblings than biological family. I care more sincerely about my failed tomato plant than you do about your dead mother. She's a serial attention whore who was using her mother's death for Facebook pity instead of showing any real grief. This girl has said to so many people that they're the reason she cuts herself and is bullying my girlfriend, so I said I'm bout to scan your wrist for a discount on McDonald's. You a barcode or QR code kinda girl. I know it's wrong, and yeah, I kinda copied it from cursed comments and stuff, but she pissed me off so much and she did much more than what I've said here. There wasn't any hostile intent on either part of ours, just friendly dark humor. A family member of mine is almost recovered from cancer, and when I went to visit him a few weeks ago he said I could take off my mask because we were more than 6 feet apart. I said, well, suppose since you already had cancer, how much worse can it get? And they thought it was funny. We're the type of people that don't take the dark things too seriously, and that's how we're happy, that's how we cope. Thought LD share a light-hearted story in contrast to the rest of these. Not me but my friend. And it's more of a threat than an insult. We were at a party and my friend's friend from his school got really drunk and started jokingly arguing with my friend's girlfriend. The kind of arguing where it's passive-aggressive and full of personal insults, but they aren't actually yelling at each other. The guy poked her really hard in the arm and she slapped his head away and said, "Don't fucking touch me." So he did it again and again until she snapped and slapped him across the face. This pissed him off and he pushed her really hard into the kitchen counter and she cut her elbow pretty bad and started tearing up. My friend steps in and calmly settles everyone down and told everyone to go back to whatever they were doing. Then he told his girlfriend to the bathroom and he'll be right there to patching up her cut. So she left. Everything seemed fine. Then my friend puts his arm over the guy's shoulder like they were old buddies and pulled him in close. And he said this calmly right into the guy's ear, "Lay a hand on her again and I'll end your fucking life." Before joining his GF in the bathroom. It was the most badass thing LVE ever witnessed. Thankfully, the rest of the party was fine, albeit a bit awkward for the next 20 minutes. Both parties apologized and we continued having a good time.